Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome back to our discussion of another important topic in the KGS magazine. And the topic is related to your internal security topic of General Studies paper 3. And the topic, as you can see, it is white collar terrorism. Okay. Of course, you know why white collar terrorism has been in news since the last month or so. The reason has been, of course, because of what has happened in Delhi, the Red Fort blast case. And the people involved, the perpetrators there were people belonging to white collared professions like doctors. So, the till now, what information we have related to what happened was that there were involvement of doctors belonging to a particular university in Faridabad near Delhi, and they were involved as of whatever information we have as of now. Okay. Now, this is also important because what you need to understand is, just going back a few years, another term which was very similar to this, which was urban terrorism. So urban terrorism was a important topic which was going around because of the instances of urban areas and urban areas being targeted by terrorists. So urban terrorism was in news. Similarly, white collar terrorism, you can expect a question from. Okay, first of all, what is this concept of white collar terrorism? Now, this is important, it's very important that we understand this first as to what it is. But the no what is the shift here we will be talking about. But what is white collar terrorism? The very first thing that we have to understand is the technical definition of it. And we can say is that, of course, white collar terrorism would involve the acts of terrorism, but the acts of terrorism, its planning, financing, as well as its execution by highly educated professionals and employed individuals. Okay. So people who are in white collar jobs, people who are in white collar jobs, people who are following white collared professions, when they are the ones who are involved in planning it, financing it, and executing it, that kind of terrorism could be, can be referred to as white collared terrorism, as in this case there was involvement of doctors in it. Okay. Now, this also very importantly tells us about the role of radicalization and how radicalization potentially even impacts people with very high degree of education. Very high degree of education, because we had always had this idea that radicalization can be limited to people generally who are not very well educated, so they don't have a very wide worldview. And because they don't have a very wild worldview, it is easy for radicalizing them. But what we see here is that even people with high education and people have who have considerable education, but even they are not immune from radicalization. Okay. So white collar terrorism is basically an example of that as well. Now, these agents do what? They use their skills, their social status, their institutional access and professional cover to plan and carry out these attacks. Very important. Because when there are people who are doing white collar jobs, like people who are engineers, doctors, etc., so we have less threat perception related to that, and it becomes easy for their movement. And we will see later on that part also. So that is basically what white collar terrorism technically is. Okay. Now, as I've already told you, that we will also take into account a very important aspect, which is a shift. So what happened in the Delhi Red Fort attack, that is there, it marks a shift, from traditional socio-economic drivers of terrorism towards ideologically motivated radicalization. So as I've already mentioned, that generally, like if you go back to the 26/11 attack, and We did catch a terrorist in the 26/11 attack, and that individual was primarily how our understanding of radicalization worked. That, he belonged to a very, very socio-economically speaking, very a very lower class. So for them, radicalization was easy for them, and we had this idea that radicalization works primarily in the this category of socio-economic category of people, but not in the higher class. But what we see here is that a complete contradiction of people who are doctors, who are associated with reputed institutions. They are now not socio-economic drivers anymore. Rather, it is ideological. The terrorism carried out, the acts of terrorism carried out is ideologically driven. Okay. Now, first of all, so we have understood what white collar terrorism is, and of course it's not new, because if you look at people like Osama bin Laden and all of them, they were also highly educated people. Okay. So what are the concerns? Now this is very important. So you may, if you are going to get a question on uh, in no, no, on white collar terrorism, you will very likely get a question on the threat or concern aspect of it. And what is it? You can say detection and profiling. It becomes very, very, very difficult, because people who are in white collar jobs generally evade profiling. So the intelligence agencies that are there, when the intelligence agencies are no and any kind of threat perception that is there, intelligence agencies that are taken, they very much look at what the socio-economic conditions, because socio-economic conditions are considered to be one of the most important drivers of people getting into acts of, against the state, or acts of terrorism, etc. But here that is not the case. So it becomes what, it generally becomes very, very difficult to raise suspicion that these people may also be involved in such, such instances. Okay. So it becomes very difficult, and it is very difficult to actually the security agencies to detect or flag individuals who belonged to such kind of jobs. Okay. Second, access to sensitive resources. They have access to sensitive resources. Like in this case, we no we were talking about ammonium nitrate, etc. And no if you have read about the case, so there was also a plan of developing a poison which is, which could be used against the people. So these things that are there, they are sensitive resources which could easily be, which could easily be used to take up attacks which could have potentially a more devastating impact. Okay. Third is mobility. Why? Because they have the benefit of extensive mobility. No one questions them. They have institutional authorization. No one questions them. And fourthly is influence. Due to the professional credentials that are there, white collared operatives exert more social influence. They exert what? More social influence. You know that there in this case itself, there was a doctor. She was the one who was the no who was primarily handling other individuals, and they no they were all recruited by her. Okay. So it is something which becomes very easy because of the kind of influence that they exert. Okay. Now, reasons for rise of white collared terrorism. First is state sponsored. So of course in India, uh, the terrorism that India faces is state sponsored terrorism from across the border. So what has happened? No, see, the Pakistan has a basic strategy towards India, which is bleeding India through thousand cuts. So they will try each any aspect. They could try anything which could allow for some kind of social problems that is there in India, and accordingly, because of their sponsorship, that has become a problem. Second is terror networks. Established terror outfits also play a major role in fostering white collar terrorism, like JEM. they have an outfit which is talking about recruiting more people into that. Radicalization. So there has been increasing instance of radicalization in India. You could say that it could be because of the abrogation of what happened in Kashmir, the abrogation of Article 370, and there are other instances as well. Technology. The accessibility to technology has been a problem in internal security, because this is also, like, if we talk about Telegram, WhatsApp, and other institutions, communication between propaganda, radicalization becomes very easy because of the emergence of technology. Okay, so that is also the case. Now, what are the measures that the government has taken and should be taking? As you can see, UAPA, so the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. The Unlawful Activities Prevention Act is the law which empowers the government to take, no, to declare individuals, institutions as terrorist or terror-related institution. That is there. There is something called as NAT grid, which is an intelligence grid providing real-time data. So that institution is there. Financial Intelligence Unit is there, which tracks financial activities and thereby predicting if there are any conspiracies that are there in order to take up terrorism, as well as cyber, digital surveillance that is there. So what could be the measures that could be used and what is required? First, legal reforms. There is requirement of legal reforms. Like if we talk about UAPA, so UAPA as of now does not specifically deal with white collar terrorism. So that is one thing that has to be taken into account. Then comes multi agency response. There is a need for coordination. That is exactly why we have NatGrid. So there is a need to enhance the cooperation that is there and to see what are the reasons that despite having a intelligence grid, but still there are some loopholes that are in existence, overcoming that. Then comes the institutional measures like educational institutions, hospitals, research organizations. There is a need to strengthen counseling there, mentorships there, so that in fact, if required, anti-radicalization measures, if required, can be taken up here as well. Then comes stringent regulation on sensitive material. So there was an instance in this case itself where there was so many quantity of ammonium nitrate which was available. So in order to address that, how we need to we need to supervise its presence. And finally, trust building, a robust anti-discrimination protection of minorities, etc., which would build trust between the minorities and the government. These steps are required to be taken. Okay, so this is basically what white collar terrorism is. With the, no, this issue is still evolving, so you may see other articles related to that also, and accordingly, if required, we will discuss them in later video. Thank you.